Hello everyone, and welcome to this magical story. Today, I bring you a classic tale full of adventure, magic, and an important lesson about kindness and envy. Get ready to travel to an enchanted kingdom and discover the amazing story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Let's begin. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, a beautiful princess was born. Her mother, the queen, had wished for a daughter with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. She named her Snow White. But, sadly, the queen passed away soon after the baby was born. The king, heartbroken and lonely, remarried a woman of extraordinary beauty but a cruel and vain heart. This new queen was obsessed with her own beauty and owned a magic mirror. Every day, she would stand before it and ask, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" And the mirror would always reply, "You, my queen, are the fairest of them all." But as Snow White grew, she became more and more beautiful. One day, when the queen asked her usual question, the mirror answered, "My queen, you are beautiful, but Snow White is now the fairest of them all." The queen's heart filled with jealousy and rage. She could not bear the thought of anyone being more beautiful than her, especially not Snow White. She summoned a huntsman and commanded him, "Take the girl into the forest, kill her, and bring me her heart as proof." The huntsman led Snow White deep into the forest, but when he saw her innocent eyes filled with fear, he could not bring himself to harm her. "Run, Snow White! Run far away and never return to the castle." Snow White ran as fast as she could through the dark and twisted trees. As night fell, exhausted and frightened, she collapsed near a small stream. When she awoke the next morning, she wandered through the woods until she found a small cottage hidden among the trees. Everything inside was tiny: the chairs, the table, the dishes, and the beds. The house was messy, but grateful to have found shelter, Snow White decided to clean it. She prepared a meal and, feeling tired, fell asleep. That evening, the owners of the cottage returned from their work. They were 7 dwarfs who labored in a nearby mine, digging for precious gems. When they found Snow White asleep in their beds, they were amazed. Gently, they woke her, and at first she was frightened. But soon, she told them her sad story. The dwarfs, moved by her kindness and misfortune, offered her a place to stay. "You can live here with us," they said. "But you must be careful. The queen is wicked and will try to harm you." Snow White promised to be cautious. Every morning, the dwarfs went to work, and before leaving, they warned her, "Do not talk to strangers, and never open the door for anyone." Meanwhile, back at the castle, the wicked queen believed Snow White was dead. But when she asked her mirror once more, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" the mirror replied, "My queen, you are beautiful, but Snow White, who lives with the 7 dwarfs, is still the fairest of them all." The queen's fury burned even stronger. She disguised herself as an old peddler woman and set out for the dwarf's cottage. Knocking on the door, she called out, "Lovely young lady, would you like a beautiful silk ribbon for your dress?" Snow White hesitated, but the ribbon was so pretty that she could not resist. The old woman tied it around her waist and pulled it so tight that Snow White fainted. Luckily, the dwarfs arrived just in time and saved her. When the queen learned her plan had failed, she grew even angrier. She disguised herself again, this time as a poor woman selling combs. "Try this beautiful golden comb," she said sweetly. Snow White, once again unsuspecting, let the woman place it in her hair. But the comb was poisoned, and she collapsed. Fortunately, the dwarfs returned and removed the poisoned comb just in time. Now furious, the queen decided to use her most wicked trick. She prepared a poisoned apple, one so red and shiny that no one could resist. Dressing as an old farmer's wife, she returned to the cottage. "Poor child," she said kindly, "surely you don't trust strangers, but look, I will take a bite of this apple first to prove it safe." She bit into one side, which was harmless, and offered the other to Snow White. Snow White hesitated, but the apple smelled so sweet that she could not resist. The moment she took a bite, she fell to the ground, unconscious. This time, when the dwarfs arrived, they could not wake her. She was in a deep, unbreakable sleep. Believing she was lost forever, They placed her in a glass coffin in a beautiful clearing in the woods. Days passed, and one day a prince, who had heard stories of a sleeping maiden, came across the glass coffin. Seeing Snow White's radiant beauty, he fell in love at first sight. Moved by her story, he leaned down and gently kissed her forehead. The spell was broken. Snow White opened her eyes and took a deep breath. The dwarfs cheered with joy, and the prince, overjoyed, asked her to marry him. Snow White agreed, and they traveled to the prince's castle for a grand wedding. Back at the queen's castle, the wicked woman once again asked her mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" But this time the mirror replied, "You, my queen, are beautiful, but Snow White, who is now a queen, is the fairest of them all." In a fit of rage, the queen tried to go to the prince's castle, but she was caught and punished for her cruelty. Snow White and the prince lived happily ever after, while the 7 dwarfs remained her dearest friends. Moral of the story: goodness and innocence always triumph over envy and wickedness. And that's the end of today's story. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did telling it. If you liked it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for more magical stories. See you in the next tale.